Hey everyone, so my name is Lily and I'm the book blogger behind Utopia State of Mind, and my makeup is intense today, but I'm going to be doing my part one of my Bookstagram Q&A questions about books. So basically, if you haven't seen the series, when I hit 3,000 subscribers on Bookstagram, I'll leave a link below, I had a Q&A and I haven't answered all of them, basically. So my goal was to kind of answer each of them in a photo, and I think I will still eventually, but just because I know that a lot of people had questions, like a lot of people, I wanted to just film a video that would kind of like give the questions to everyone now, or give the answers, I guess, to everyone now. I have already filmed a part where I talk about book looks, Bookstagram, planning, and kind of miscellaneous questions. But I got a lot of questions, like over 30, I want to say, questions just specifically about books. So I want to talk about those, and because I think there were about 30, I'm going to have to split this up maybe into two parts. But here we go. So the first one is, what is your current read? As I said, I got this question so long ago. My current read, I'm actually reading so many books right now. I can't even, like, I'm one of those people who needs to read one book at a time. And because of just like buddy reads and just things like that in general, and my TBR being what it is, I've had to read more than that recently. I think that currently on like Goodreads, I'm reading like 14 books. Okay, and this is because a lot of them I haven't written reviews for, but I've actually finished. So what am I currently reading? Right, that was the question. I'm currently reading I Think I Love You. That's my current like arc read for my schedule. I'm buddy reading The Unbroken with Kate from Your Tita Kate, and I'll leave links below as well. So I'm also buddy reading Once Upon a Quinceañera with Vic from Santana Reads and Cande from I Am Rainbow. I will leave links obviously below. So I'm reading that one. For my 12 Friends, 12 Books project, I'm also reading slowly a memory called Empire. I read like about 15 to 20% of that a day. And I'm listening to the audiobook The Rape of Nanking, which is also for the 12 Friends, 12 Books. And I also like to read like a romance book before bed, which is just, you know, my own way to kind of like de-stress from the day. So I'm reading Hannah Khan Carries On, but I'm actually haven't read like I've barely read any of that because I've been reading all these other books, and like I spend so much of my day reading now, and at night, like basically I'm buddy reading or reading these books for buddy reads until like 12 or essentially. So I just haven't had the time. I think once I finish one of these buddy reads, which is normally I like to do like one buddy read. So normally to kind of maximize my time, which is this was like, I said I was going to read less in 2021, maximize my time. Like, what am I doing really? But normally I have my arc one. I have my like backlist kind of book that I read only about 20% a day. I like those to be physical ones, so I can kind of stop my eyes from only reading on the screens. And then I'll have my audiobook and then one buddy read. It's just now I'm reading two buddy reads. Yeah. So that is what I'm reading. What is your favorite book? I feel like this is the question everybody gets as a reader or book blogger, and it's like my least favorite question. Not being like shade to anyone, but my least favorite question because I have so many favorite books. So all I can do right now is like point you to my list of 2025 star reads. So there's certainly some of my favorite. It feels so wrong to pick like a favorite book, so I'm not going to. But I have a whole video of like my top ones from 2020. What debut 2020 authors delighted you? This is actually such a great question that I think I want to turn into a YouTube video, like 2020 author discoveries, because I had so many. I love a few things. I try to read a lot of debut books, just because I'm trying to think about like where I can make my book blogging like efforts make the most impact, and so debut is one great one. And I also love to read books where I've read like the debut of a book, and so now I like reading their sophomore or their junior book essentially, because I think that there can be a lot of like hype for debut books, but once you kind of like go onto sophomore or junior books, there can kind of be a little bit less hype and it becomes a little bit different like marketing wise. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about, and I definitely want to turn that into kind of like a series idea or at least a video idea for the future. What is a book that has positively surprised you and why? I try to go into books with basically no expectations. I know that sometimes you have a lot of expectations about like maybe you've gotten the recommendation from me or maybe you've gotten the recommendation from someone else or whatever. So that's kind of difficult to do, to go into like a book with no expectations. But I feel like the books that positively surprise me are the books, yeah, that I have like no expectations for and that really kind of changed my opinion. So for example, just two I can think of off the top of my head, and so many have surprised me in 2020, but I think two of them were just like Crown Chasers was so unexpectedly emotional to me, right? Like I legitimately cried at the end of it. I don't cry that much in book reading, but I also don't cry that much in first books of a series because if you think about it, you haven't spent as much time with the characters. So it can kind of mean that like that's why you're not as emotionally like connected to them, I guess. And then another book that positively surprised me was Goddess in the Machine, so full sci-fi picks, because I think I was expecting like one plot, and then what happened is the plot also took on another dimension. This is also how I feel with La Bizzona, like that plot also took on new heights and a new kind of subplot or a new direction that it went into that I really loved and unexpectedly loved. And then for Goddess in the Machine, I love when you like read a book and you're expecting to love the main character and then you end up also really loving a side character almost even more. So that's just one of those like character delights, I guess, that I have. The next one, a book you love even if it's embarrassing. This is a really hard one. So I think when I'm only really embarrassed about books if they're from problematic, but I didn't know that when I read it. This happens a lot to like books that I read when I was younger. But I also can't really think of that many, I guess. So a book that I love even though it's embarrassing, I can't really think of any really, because I feel like even the ones that I read that I loved at the time, but now I realize are problematic looking back, I don't really love them anymore, and I don't, like a lot of people can sometimes have problematic faves, and I just don't think I have that many at the moment. Maybe I'm forgetting some, but yeah, I just can't think of a book that I love that's embarrassing. A book that made you cry this year. Oof, this year has been really emotional for me on a personal level, so I feel like a lot of books are like making me cry that probably wouldn't make me cry otherwise. One of the ones that was super emotional, I don't remember if I actually cried, but was We Are the Ashes, We Are the Fire. It talks about rape culture and slut shaming and just like a lot of really intense issues, and also some about blaming the victim and stuff that were just very personal to me. And so that one was really emotional. I also knew that that was going to be really emotional just based on the summary. So yeah, that one made me super emotional. I don't remember if it actually made me cry though. What book would you want turned into a TV or a movie? I would love for the Reader trilogy or the Bone Witch trilogy to be turned into anything, essentially. So that was super easy question for me. But what is, if I only had to read one book for the rest of my life, what would it be? Oof. Man, it's hard because, like, for example, I love the Poppy War so much, but that's such an intense emotional read. I don't know if I'd want to read, like, just that series for the rest of my life, because I'm obviously also going to do series, not books. And then, like, I really love Jade City, but I don't know. I mean, maybe I would pick Jade City, because first of all, I want to pick something that's a series. I love Jade City in the fact that it gives you political kind of clan intrigue, but also characters that also made me cry. So yeah, maybe Jade City. I also haven't read Jade City in so long. I read Jade City and Jade Wars arcs, and so it's been a really long time for me to wait emotionally till Jade Legacy. So when I think about like books that I want to kind of reread or revisit, that's definitely something that comes to mind. What is your favorite book to film TV adaptation? Maybe this is a little bit of a cheating thing. I really love the Lord of the Rings movies. I've also only read the Fellowship of the Ring. I haven't finished reading Two Towers or Return of the King, but like I just feel like they hold up really well. I rewatch it basically every year. As I said, I haven't read The Two Towers or The Return of the King, so I don't know about that. I definitely think that it's an interesting thing to think about books and TV film adaptations. I like to honestly think of them as completely different products. They give you certain different things, right? So for a book, I really love character introspection and character thought. That you're just not going to get that really that much from a book to film or book to TV adaptation, because a lot of, like, all of that space and certainly silence is, I wouldn't say it's a commodity, but it's something that you have to think about. Strategic silences and also character introspection often is just in thoughts, and you just don't get a lot of thoughts in books or like thoughts in film and TV stuff. It's generally a lot of action in what you say. So in general, I just feel like they give me they address two different needs or two different wants within me. So yeah, because for example, if I'm thinking about a Bone Witch or the Reader trilogy like adaptation, what I'm thinking about more is kind of, I want to see these worlds and I want to see the action and the magic systems personified. It's not necessarily that I want to see all of T or all of Sephia's like internal strife or internal vulnerability on the page. I mean, I do want to see that, obviously, because that's hugely important. But when I think about what I want to see in a film or TV adaptation, that's kind of what I'm looking for. And it just, it just addresses different needs. Books you can relate to and why. Oof. I don't know if it's hard, because I found so many different pieces of my identity and different struggles and like issues in my life in different books. This is something that I've also thought about doing as a video topic, so I should actually just like star these basically, because I've thought about this often when I ask people like, what are your top favorite 5 books that reflect who you are in a nutshell, right? So what 5 books do I need to read to get a better sense of who you are as a person? And so when I think of that, I think of, what do I think of? I think of The Leavers, Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng. Yeah, it's just something I'm gonna have to think about, honestly. I love that as a video idea though, like 10 books you should read if you want to get to know me. I take the question is, do you take covers off hardcovers when you read? Yes, I do. I don't like the idea of by accidentally ripping them if I'm like holding it on my body or with a blanket or whatever, so I take them off. I also don't love the idea of like bending them that much. It's just a thing about how I can make sure that the hardcover dust jackets stay in the best condition. Favorite tropes. When I think of favorite tropes, I only really think of romance favorite tropes. So I'm gonna share those. I love there's only one bed. I love first of all, I love enemies to romance, or enemies to enemies to lovers, rivals to romance, friends to lovers. I love all of those tropes. I like fake dating a lot. So I guess those are my top romance tropes I can think of that I really like. Oh, what yet to be released cover are you obsessed with? I love A Chorus Rises by Bethany C. Morrow. I think that Morrow is so blessed with gorgeous covers. I loved A Song Below Water. I love A Chorus Rises. Like, they're one of those things where they're illustrated, but they also feature black girls on the cover. And I just love like the way that they also infuse a little bit of magic or a little bit of atmosphere in it as well. What's been my favorite read of 2020 so far? Not 2020, 2021. I mean, it was 2020 when the question was asked. It's not 2020 anymore, it's 2021. What's been my favorite read of 2021? It's hard because I'm not even done with February. So all I can say is that my favorite read for sure so far of January was Last Night at the Telegraph Club. That was just fantastic. I mentioned it in my January wrap-up. I like filmed a whole segment because I forgot to mention it in the video. And I loved how emotional it was and how it tackles like Asian American identity and queer identity all wrapped up into one, and the ways that it intersects and forms your life. What book disappointed you so far this year? Okay. So far this year, The Secret History disappointed me. Okay. First off, everyone loves that book, and I do see why you could love that book. I think it just is like not a book for me. So the first one is it was a lot longer than I was expecting. I had an issue with the pacing. I have many questions about the ending. And also, as I was telling my friend who loved the book, why, like, some of my qualms about the book, she was like, yeah, I definitely just don't think that you are the person for this book. What is your ideal reading setting? So I've never read this way, but what I can imagine my ideal reading setting would be sitting in one of those like faux leather brown armchairs with one of those tables next to you, those round like end tables. On top of that has some tea and some cookies. And then I have one of those beautiful kind of reddish rugs in front of me. There's a fire going. There's a window on this side and it's snowing. That's my ideal reading setting. I've never had this ever before in my life. This is just like my ideal, essentially, reading setting. And then the last question was match your favorite animal with a book and why. So I actually I have a whole note on my phone about books with animals that I haven't written yet as a blog post. So yeah. Anyway, the hard thing is that one of my favorite animals growing up was always a panda, or even maybe a red panda, but I can't think of a book that would pair really well with that. I also really love phoenixes, and I guess books that would pair with that is definitely Crown of Feathers. Like, it's one of my favorite kind of trilogies. It actually isn't done yet, so if you want to jump into the trilogy, definitely do with Crown of Feathers. And I guess that's the best like phoenix book pairing that I can think of at the moment. Phoenixes are used a lot, I think, in books, but that's certainly my favorite phoenix reincarnation or incarnation. So thanks for tuning in to the part 1 of my Bookstagram book Q&A session. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to title it. You'll see up here what I'm going to title it. I will leave all the links to books I mentioned down below, and books to like people, or not books, links to people I mentioned as well down below. I hope you have a really great time watching this. If you have any Q&A questions I didn't answer, or any questions in general, please leave them below. I love doing like Q&A ones. I love to see what people are interested in about my life and about books. So I hope you enjoyed this one, and I will see you for part 2.